Welcome. I'm Doug Smith from Kentucky Valley Educational Cooperative, and we are here this afternoon with Miss Kimberly Howard from the Kentucky Autism Training Center. And this is the Autism Hour. And Miss Kim is going to be discussing preschool life skills with us this afternoon. So enjoy the session.
Hi guys. So this is Preschool Life Skills. It's called Preschool Life Skills, but Dr. Greg Hanley, the person who came up with this, is moving towards calling this Universal Life Skills. They are the skills that all students need to be successful in school. So that was the thing that attracted me to it at first, was the fact that that this is out there and it's free and it's meant to support all learners, including them into the regular classroom. It's especially good for your preschool age, kindergarten age, and I mean the whole classroom. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So preschool, kindergarten age, even first grade, regular classroom, I would completely use this curriculum. It's also very good for MSD units, or LBD, EBD type units will also benefit regardless of the age, if the students do not already have these skills at that point. So now this is additional resources that you can find. So how did preschool skills get created? They interviewed, if you ever have spare time in your life, they interviewed 3,000 teachers. They surveyed them and they asked them, what skills do you need your preschoolers that are coming into kindergarten? What skills do they need? Well, it used to be many, many years ago, teachers answered things like they need to have basic shape knowledge and they needed to know their alphabet and they needed to be able to sit and follow directions. But now we have shifted towards we need students that can tell their thoughts and feelings. We need kids to follow simple directions, not be disruptive, be able to take turn and share and be sensitive to the needs of others. And so this represented a big change in our education system. So this is preschool skills, and this is what it looks like. When you find that handout, and it's about 60 pages, so I feel to call it a handout. It's the whole curriculum, and this is what the cover page looks like, and it takes you through this triangle of foundational skills. So following instructions, functional communication, tolerance. We know when we hit a preschool classroom or any large whole group setting with multiple young children, having tolerance for lots of things is a good skill, and friendship skills. And this was created by Dr. Greg Hanley. Preschool life skills. The primary purpose, goal of it is to identify and set up classroom conditions that produce socially competent children. It can be used in homes, it can be used in classrooms. We already said that he's kind of moving towards changing this to universal life skills curriculum, just because it is pretty universal. It is a supplemental curriculum, and it's made up of 13 lessons that teach critical early life and social skills, specifically geared towards preschool age, kindergarten age, first grade age. Those are the grades that I've used it with most often, and I have used it with several MSD classroom settings, and the students did not already have these skills. So you teach a common set of skills that prevent problem behaviors, and hopefully are able to respond to existing problem behaviors. The nice thing about this curriculum is that it's not geared, it wasn't necessarily written for students who already were identified as needing special education services. This curriculum was written and geared for your kids that fall in the crack. Maybe they don't have a diagnosis yet. And this is, I always come here and we talk about specifically about autism, but this specific curriculum is broad and it is utilized for kids that will not ever receive special education services, but they kind of fall through the cracks. We know sometimes that 1 point difference on an IQ score, that 1 point difference on a social skills assessment can make a big difference on whether or not a child is able to receive special education services. But just because you can't receive special education services doesn't mean that you still don't need help. So this curriculum is geared specifically for your whole classroom. And we'll talk about how we utilize it. But when we start with this, we start teaching this through whole classroom setting. And that is the thing that I love about it. It takes about, if you do one skill a week, it takes 13 weeks. This is a great, I know it's May and it's the end of the school year. This is the perfect way to start out your school year next year. And that's why I thought it would be a good place to get started with it now, so that you will have some exposure to it and have the opportunity to get ready to start out with it. And here's why, here's why I promote this curriculum. What they have found through research and by using this curriculum is that in classrooms that teachers have been introduced to the curriculum and given just some simple instructions on it, and then given access to the free curriculum, that they had a 70% decrease in problem behaviors over the whole broad classroom. 70% decrease in problem behaviors. I don't know of very many, I don't know if I know of any other curriculum that can give you those kind of numbers. So to me, it feels like a miracle. And you get a 400% increase in critical social skills. And when I first started looking at the curriculum, I'm like, wow, why didn't I think of this? Why did it never occur to me? These are the skills that we need kids to have, but we don't provide direct instruction for them. And so this curriculum kind of provides a systematic way to provide some quick, direct instruction to your whole classroom. And this is set up as, the other nice thing about this is that it's set up, and a part of the curriculum includes the data collection sheets, and you can use this as a part of your RTI. So if you are a teacher who's required or is a part of the team that takes that RTI data, and for this curriculum, I would only use it as RTI data for very young children. So preschool age, kindergarten age, up to maybe into first grade age. This would be a great curriculum that you could take help utilize to take RTI data. And it's already includes all of the data collection sheets for free. And it's set up for you, and they tell you exactly how to do it. So that part to me it feels like a really a nice teacher adult friendly approach to taking and collecting that data. But hopefully, if we can get a 70% decrease in behavior and a 400% increase in social skills, hopefully maybe this curriculum could help fix the problem, and that RTI will work, and it will work well, and those kids won't necessarily need to come into special education. So it is a prevention model. So how do we teach it? We are specifically introducing challenging situation and then teaching the functionally equivalent skills before we have a problem at all, right? We're teaching these kids the life skills that they need to function in a classroom. That sounds really complicated, but I promise that it's not. This is meant to be taught class-wide. So you teach this to the whole preschool classroom, whole kindergarten, first grade classroom, the whole MSD classroom, right? You are repeated exposure. You're giving them repeated exposure to the instructions. It is really quick. These lessons take a few minutes. Some of them only take a minute or two to teach. Maybe you're definitely going to do some role playing. So what I have seen with teachers, they're doing some modeling. These lessons take maybe 5 minutes in the introduction. And part of that, the biggest part of that is some modeling of exactly what you want kids to do. Direct instruction. Here's the skill. Here's what it looks like. Here's exactly what we're all going to do today and forever, hopefully, right? And then you're going to practice it. You might have your teacher and your classroom assistant practice it together. You might have a couple of kids come up and all practice it. You're going to provide specific behavior praise. I love the way that you responded to your name the first time I said it. I love the way you stopped what you were doing, looked at me, and responded to your name. As soon as I said your name, great job. Just real quick feedback. And then if they didn't maybe they didn't perform the behavior, then there's a corrective procedure in which you go back and you spend a few more minutes teaching them the skill again and modeling that skill for them again specifically. So response to intervention. So we start out with preschool life skills, one skill for each week. And then if that's your whole class, right? So whole class, maybe you have a small group of kids that aren't quite getting it. They need a smaller group lesson. So maybe during your individual lesson time, you're pulling a small group of kids to a table and you're doing the exact same lesson with those group of kids, but you're just doing it in small group instruction. And then you'll have a few kids that will fall down to they need a one-on-one, somebody to one-on-one work with them and say, here's the skill, here's how we're going to do it. And then we fall into kids that need specific skills-based training. So I will say preschool life skills is not meant for your kids that are already having significant behaviors. Probably this won't be successful for them. So note to self, this preschool life skills is meant for your whole class, and it's meant for those kids that need some additional supports, but don't need a giant amount of supports. So I just want to be clear about that. I wish this was the magic wand that would just, fix everything, but unfortunately it's not. But the things that it does help with are huge. And it's 13 weeks. So if we're starting out with this at the beginning of the school year, then by the start of the second quarter, or maybe at the end of the first quarter, however long your quarters are, you have taught the life skills that your kids need for the entire year. And it gives you that common language that you can use to refresh on those skills if you need to. So these are the preschool life skills. So responding to name follows a single step instruction, follows multi-step instruction, request help, request adult or peer attention, request materials from adults, request materials from peers. And each of these fall into different parts of that triangle and they build on each other. So you do want to start at stage 1. You do want to start with the first lesson and work your way through. 8 is tolerates delays, so waiting or a delay imposed by adults. 9 is tolerates delays imposed by peers. 10, they say thank you. 11, acknowledge or compliments others. 12, offers and shares with others. And 13 is comfort others. And so we're going to walk through what some of these might look like. So if you're using this as RTI or you want to use this as a part of all of your students or a few of your students, kind of your classroom assessments that you're using, there is a 1-page preschool life skills questionnaire that you answer. It should be answered by someone who knows the child. So if this is a child that's only been in your classroom and you've only had 1 day of experience with them, then you might not be qualified. You may not know the answers to this. Some of these you can pick up on right away. Some of these you might need to wait a week or 2 into the school year to kind of be more comfortable answering. So they're very simple. It's the first one is if you literally are going through the preschool life skills, do they do it or do they not? So number 1 is adult calls child by first name. And then A is they stop whatever they were doing. That would be the competing behavior. And they look towards the speaker and they say yes. Or if they do not have verbal communication, then they look and they indicate that they are looking at you. And maybe they nod their head yes, or use a communication card. Or they don't do any of those things. And engaging in problem behavior means simply that they just didn't respond to their name. That is a problem behavior if you don't respond to your name. So you go all the way through and it lets you know, are they doing this? Yes or no? Where are we at with our kids? It's very quick. It takes about probably 5 or 10 minutes to do. Some of the teachers that I work with do this for every single child in the classroom. Some of the teachers that I work with do this for just a few students that they're using this for RTI data, or their kids that are kind of falling on that crack of maybe they need extra help or maybe they don't need extra help, and they're utilizing that form to help that decision-making process. I think it's completely up to you and how you want to use it. So the first preschool life skill is when I call your name, stop what you're doing, look at me and say yes. So I want to point out here that for students with autism, many of them do not know to respond to their name. Responding to your name is a social skill. And stopping what you're doing, especially if it's something that you really like doing, can be very hard. And so that was one of the things that attracted me to this curriculum, especially for our autism level 1 students that are going to be out there in that regular classroom with their peers. So this is a great way to help teach some of those skills. And when they say in this, look at me, it doesn't mean that they have to give you eye contact. That can be something that is tough for many students that are autistic, right? So maybe they don't have to look directly, they don't need to give you eye contact, but they need to look towards the speaker is generally what we teach. Look towards the speaker, however that looks. Look at their chest, look at their, their shoulder, just look in their general direction. Inside of the resource folder, you're going to find a 1-page, like a front and back skills sheet that literally gives you the whole lesson plan. So if you're a teacher that needs to give if you're someone who's writing out lesson plans, the lesson plans are included in this for you. So the goal is when the adult calls the child by their first name, within 2 seconds, the child will look at the speaker and say yes. Note that there can be accommodations made if the child is nonverbal or non-speaking. So literally your instruction to the whole group when you're teaching this, you just when we've taught this with kids, we literally just say, all right, guys and girls, our special skill this week is responding to your name. Well, what does that mean? It means when I call your name, stop what you're doing, look at me and say yes. Now, I have seen teachers teach this with a puppet. I've seen teachers teach this with their assistant, and then the teacher will call the assistant's name, the assistant will call the teacher's name, and then the teacher and the assistant will take turns calling different students' name and giving everyone a chance to practice this in the group. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on your group size. It may take less than that. It's real quick. You're just modeling it. And then that day, after you've left your whole group time and now the kids maybe are at centers or at a different activity, you just call their name throughout the day. Johnny, Sarah, whatever their names are. And then the data collection is, did they respond or not? And then the kids that are not responding, maybe those are kids that are going to move up the chain and they're going into your small group lesson. They're going to move into your small group lesson. To see that they need more direct instruction in a smaller group setting. I do like this a lot because basically it's all laid out for you. If you have a correct response, so the child immediately looks at you, then it gives you a suggestion of great job listening and looking. It's behavior specific praise, and then you just dismiss the child. And then if you're recording this, you're taking the data, you're going to write an I for independent response on that data sheet, which is provided for you. So maybe you need to give feedback for an incorrect response. So you're going to, you say you say Johnny, and the child doesn't look at you within 2 seconds. So you're going to stop whatever they're doing and you're going to remind them, hey, remember that skill we're working on this week? When I call your name, stop what you're doing, look at me and say yes. Let's try it again right now. And then you give the child a few seconds to engage with their item, and then you call the child's name and give them appropriate feedback. Either hopefully they've done it right, or maybe they weren't able to do it right. And then you're going to record this as a P for prompted on that data sheet. We know young kids are especially visual learners. And so this can be a great place to start at. Someone that worked with Dr. Greg Hanley, and I do not know their name, made up a series of visual supports to support every one of these preschool life skills. So this is stop, look, say yes, in a visual direction. When I use these, I printed it out, and this was up in my, my essential questions, or what are we working on this week? All right, we're working on looking and responding to your name. And this was our visual prompt that I used with my students that needed a little bit more support. So number 2, preschool life skills 2, is when I give you an instruction, do it right away. Wouldn't that be lovely? Please, when I give you an instruction, do it right away. Um, when I first heard about this and I was looking at the different, the different weeks, what are the lessons that we're teaching? I'm like, why did I never think to stop and give direct instruction and say, hey guys, I need you when I say your name, I need you to respond to me. I need you to look my way and say yes, or indicate somehow that you're hearing me. Um, it never even occurred to me to do that. And it would have made a huge difference for many of my students. Especially if I was about to give an instruction. Maybe I'm going to I'm going to say their name and then I'm going to give them a one-step direction. And so these build on each other, right? The nice thing is that you're going to find this following one-step instruction. Every single goal of preschool life skill has the same page, and you have access to these pages. They are all free. Um, and inside of your preschool life skills curriculum, if you flip to following one-step directions, you're going to find a series of lesson plans. And inside of that, they have a list of suggestions. Maybe you can't decide on a one-step direction. They're going to give you a whole different list that you can choose from. And you don't have to use any of those, or you can use them if you need them. It's kind of up to you on how to do it. So number 3 is when I give you instructions, so multi-step directions. So multi-step direction is, all right, guys, I need you to put away the markers and put your papers in the basket. Those, we need them to do more than one thing. This happens a lot in a classroom. And I think that following multi-step directions can be hard for kids, especially young children. And I think that's why we teach first, stop what you're doing and look at me when I call your name, because a lot of times kids get busy and they're doing whatever it is they're doing, and they don't necessarily hear you, or they don't hear the words that you're saying always. So every single page has one of these with it. So it says provide an instruction in the instructions box. This one says provide 2 instructions simultaneously. Stand up and clap, stand up and jump, stand up and bring your mat to me, pick up that toy and hand it to me or hand it to someone else. Stand up and touch your hand. Just real quick, something simple, however works best for you. None of these are giant skills. When I was first reading this, I'm like, wow, what are we teaching? This has to be fabulous. But all of these are the skills that we need kids to know. And these are the skills that sometimes cause significant problem behaviors for our students. So number 4 is when it's too hard to find a teacher. When something is too hard to find a teacher or any adult, right? And say, help me, please. This is an important skill. I don't know how many times I found kids that are upset because they need help, but asking for help is something that's very hard for them to do. This is one of those that you may have to set things up. When I've seen this be taught, sometimes we're doing an art project and we will not give them the glue that they need, or not give them some piece of the art project that they need to complete, so that we are setting up the experience that they need to ask for help. And then we're responding to that and we're saying, oh, great, you need glue. Here you go. Let me get glue for you. All right. Number 5 is when you want something from a teacher or friend and they're doing something else, say, excuse me, and get them to look at you. So how do we get something from a teacher or a friend and they're busy? So polite, lovely response here, hopefully. So the instructions for this are pretend to be busy. And then another adult or teacher can prompt the child to get your attention while you are talking with another adult or talking to a child. Maybe you're on the phone or writing something. But the goal is for the child to say, excuse me, and as a polite way to get your attention. This is a pretty good skill to have. Number 6 is when someone is in your way or has something you want, say, excuse me, to get their attention, and then say, may I blank to get what you want, right? So someone is in your way, or they have something that you want, right? So we want what they have. And this is in the part of the triangle all of this is functional communication. right? And these can be adapted for students that are non-speaking. Um, these absolutely can be adapted for that for students that are non-speaking. So the use of a communication device or some sort of a core board or simple communication board. So the instruction for this is ask the children to perform a variety of preferred tasks, preferred activities while blocking their access to things that they need. So one idea is assigning a daily helper while standing in front of the helper board or keeping the materials that they need, right? So the cool thing about preschool life skills is that it takes areas that can be hard for our students, and it purposefully sets up scenarios and situations in which you are providing them direct instruction on how to navigate their way socially appropriately through those. That is the cool thing about preschool life skills, in that you're not avoiding things that are hard for young kids. You are setting up circumstances in which you're teaching them the correct way to respond to difficult situations. And I do think that's really one of the core foundation pieces for preschool life skills. So number 7 is, so the first one was for an adult. Number 7 is to another child. So this one's kind of broken down into requesting, excuse me, may I, something's been blocked and they can't access to something that they need. So the first one is for an adult in the classroom, a teacher or an aide, and this one is to a peer. And there are several of these that are like that, where first you're trying it out to an adult, and then you're trying it out with a peer in the classroom. Number 3, unit 3 is tolerance. This is the start of tolerance, and this is preschool life skill 8. When an adult tells you to wait, say okay, and waiting words. When I wait quietly, I get what I want. And you teach kids this. And waiting is a major skill. Think about how many times when you hit a kindergarten classroom, students need to wait. My personal child, many years ago now, when he was in kindergarten, he was the 32nd child in that classroom. He was the 32nd child in that classroom. And that one teacher had 64 children because she was split. They were half day with a classroom aide, half day with a fully certified teacher. It's before kindergarten was funded in Kentucky. And so he waited a lot. You have to wait a lot when you're in a large classroom or a large group setting. And for many students that he was an only child, so waiting wasn't in his vocabulary. He didn't have to wait very often. So when we hit kindergarten age and he was required to wait for things that he really wanted, it was a hard skill for him to learn. It was a new thing. So if this is taught, you start out waiting for an adult, and it gives you some instructions in those there's a couple of different versions of these that will give you examples of how you might set up this event. So you're going to one of the suggestions is ask the child to do one of the following: a single step instruction, or a helper teacher will prompt the child to get another teacher's attention while they're busy, and then they need to wait for them, right? And so the phrase that they teach them to say is, when I wait quietly, I get what I want. And that is a good skill to learn. So now we've done 8 is with an adult, and 9 is exactly the same, but it is with a child. In preschool age groups, I have seen this be used a lot to help a child wait on another toy, for sharing activities, for sharing an item. This is a great one when we're teaching kids to share toys or to share items. And in the beginning, for some of my students, when we taught this, they only waited for a few seconds, right? Their wait tolerance was very short, and we waited for a few seconds. And it could just be long enough as 1 second. I've had students that we started out waiting, and it was literally, they waited 1 second and then they got the item, and we built up on that time. And it just depends on the students that you have. So unit 4 is the top of our pyramid, and it is friendship, right? All kids want friends, all kids need friends. So preschool life skills number 10 is, when someone gives you something, look at them and say thank you. Saying thank you is awesome. It's a great social skill to have. Teachers very much appreciate polite manners from kids, and I think sometimes it's something that we don't have time to teach anymore. But this is a great way to incorporate that back into the day. So one good skill in there, definitely. So when number 11 is when someone new comes to the area you are playing, say hello or something else that is nice. Now, this one can be funny in that teaching kids to say something else that is nice can be hard, but I do think it is a great skill. How do we compliment someone? How do we greet someone? So teaching those basic greetings and teaching a compliment, if possible. Hey, I like your shoes, or um, uh, hi, nice to meet you, or hi, you can play with me. All good skills that we definitely want kids to have. So number 12 is when you see someone that does not have any toys, share some toys with them. So this comes back to sharing. Um, I'm sure if you spent much time in an early childhood classroom, you will know how much drama can happen around sharing items. So for the reminder of this one, they say call each child's name one at a time, and they suggest waiting 10 seconds between children so that they have time to get their attention back on their item before before you call their name again, or before you call the next person's name. I like that they give you examples of feedback for correct response. They give you examples of feedback for an incorrect or no response. It's fairly scripted out for you. Number 13 is when someone looks hurt or upset, ask the question, are you okay? So empathy and recognizing when someone is hurt and upset, teaching kids to be concerned for others. All of these are great skills that kindergarten teachers indicated that they need their students to have, and that they weren't having them. So some of the advantages of preschool life skills program is that we don't avoid challenging situations. We introduce them. So we don't share. All right, so let's set up some circumstances in which we are direct instruction teaching how to share. And it's systematic in that the skills build on each other, and it has a logical teaching order. It's chained responses, so that promotes extensive over teaching. So we get attention, then we make a request, then we wait, then we say thank you, then we share. So that all kind of connect together over time. And it provides function-based intervention for the whole classroom simultaneously, right? We're hitting everyone at the same time. This isn't, it's meant to be taught whole class, which I think is really great. And it is effective and socially valid. And many teachers like it and say that it worked really well for them. So I do think that that makes a ton of sense. And I want to give you a chance to grab this participant page again. I don't know if there are any questions. I will say, here's what I tell people when I first got started with this. I'm a print person. It depends on your personality. You might be really comfortable having this technology based. This is a great thing to print out and to take a few minutes just looking through it. Wait, next school year, at the beginning of the year, give yourself a week or two. You've got a week or two into the school year, you've met the kids, you've had a little bit of experience with them to where you can answer those questions. Do they respond to their name? Can they share? Do they wait? Some of those simple questions, and then get started with it. You can teach this one skill a week. Sometimes in MSD classrooms, or with students that are having a really hard time with some of the skills, we've taught one skill for a few weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. It just depends on your student. But if I'm teaching this whole class, I generally teach it either one skill a week or one skill for 2 weeks. So I'll stick with the same skill for 2 weeks. I might do that, especially if I know there's a lot of students that don't have the skills. And it's one of those things, the nice thing about it is that you can kind of get a feel for it. If at the end of the first week, you've taught that, responding to your name, 80, 90% of your students have it, they're doing great with it, then you can move on. And then your kids that don't necessarily have that skill, they move into small group instruction with it. And you're going to keep working with them in a small group setting, a few minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, um, and prompting those skills with them with the additional stuff. You can find the other cool thing is that there are a couple of podcasts. If you're a podcast listener, while you're cleaning out the classroom at the end of the year, there's some really great free podcasts about this curriculum. Goes a little bit more in depth into the research and has some examples of it being used in actual classrooms. The YouTube training with video examples, they have actual video examples of this being used in live classrooms. Wonderful information, great place to start. This is a quote, and it says, "Ours is not to dominate, but to de-escalate, or better yet, prevent escalation in the first place." Let's stop behavior now, right? Ours is not to coerce, but to listen, learn, guide, and coach. Ours is not to redirect, restrain, or merely manage and modify. Ours is to understand, share, and shape. Ours is to prioritize safety, rapport, and the televisibility of what we do above all else. So this came from Dr. Greg Hanley, and it's one of his quotes about why we are shifting and moving towards, for many years now, moving towards behavior prevention. We know that once any behavior has happened, there's minimal things that I can do about it. But if I can prevent difficult or interfering behaviors from happening, that's where it's at. And preschool life skills is one of those curriculums that was set up and meant for students that to prevent any kind of problem behavior. That was the most fabulous thing that I found about it. Was the goal with preschool life skills was to prevent those problem behaviors. And for many teachers, that's what they found that it did was that once they put these things into place, 70% decrease in problem behaviors and a 400% increase in 400% increase in social skills is hugely validating for why we might use this. So regular education teachers, special education teachers, it's pretty broad in its use. I thank you for your time. I will say this is one of those curriculums that you have to take a few minutes and look at it. The nice thing is that it comes with your data collection sheets. Those could be used for RTI collection, or they could just be used for general data collection. It comes with your lesson plans, and it comes with suggestions of use, and it comes with free visual supports. I hope that you consider this for the start of next school year. It's a little late in the year probably at this point for us, but this is definitely something that a week or two into next school year, jump out with this, get started, and it would make a huge difference in your year.
Thank you, Ms. Kimberly, for your presentation. I appreciate everything you do for our students and teachers and staff members throughout our school districts.